The Revenue Mobilization Allocation Fiscal Commission is initiating 114% upward review of basic salaries of public office holders, including the President, Vice President, governors, and other elected officials, pending presidential approval. But the basic salary review has led to heated debates from a section of the public who feel the remuneration package for political office holders is unfair and insensitive in the face of current economic realities. The RMAFC chairman, Muhammad Shehu, said the move was in line with the provision of paragraph 2D of part 1 of the third schedule of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic as amended. Shehu said the last review of the remuneration was carried out in 2007, which culminated into, quote, certain political, public and judicial officers holders salary and allowances Amendment Act 2008. Our correspondent, Bega Shiru, tells us more.
With the nation still at a gripping point after the withdrawal of the fuel subsidy, analysts say the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission's approved review of political office holders' annual basic salary by 114% completely defies the overriding need to reduce the cost of governance. The RMAFC is saddled with the responsibility of determining the remuneration that's appropriate for political office holders, including the President, Vice President, governors, deputy governors, ministers, commissioners, special advisors, legislators, and the holders of the offices as mentioned in Section 84 and 124 of this Constitution. On the flip side, some have argued that the review of the political office holders' remuneration is long overdue, with the last implementation done in 2008. But this proposal seems somewhat disturbing for the optics, as some argue that the take-home allowances and perks of the political office holders is too outrageous compared to the national minimum wage. Meanwhile, controversies have been trailing the announcement of the review of the public office holders' remuneration. Arise News got in touch with the chairman RMAFC, Mr. Shehu Mohammed, who explained that the commission is only reviewing the annual basic salary, which was last reviewed 15 years ago.
I don't think the National Assembly and senators earn an outrageous amount of money. I've said this publicly. The salary of a senator or member of House of Reps is about, senator is about $1 million. $1 million, a little bit. Are you talking about the basic salary or the total package? Basic salary and allowances. However, there is what they call operating funds, for running the office. If you are elected senator representing Lagos West, for instance, you have to have a constituency office, I don't know how many in your state. You have to hire some people to man that office. You have to have equipments, computers and others, and depending upon the size of your constituency. Now, in other societies, that has nothing to do with the senator. There is already a structure whereby the system takes care of all those things and provided. It's still cost of governance. But here, from what I understand the National Assembly did, they monetize this and they give the senator that amount of money, and at the end of the year, I think he retires it by bringing receipts and other things. So Nigerians can advocate for take your basic salary and take your allowances, but leave the issue of constituency offices, workers in the constituency offices, equipments and others, leave it to the structure of the system.
For others.
However, with the current federal government and Labour meeting a new wage still ongoing, Nigerian workers are wondering if Labour will not ask for more. Joining us now to discuss the latest development amid Tinubu's effort to revive Nigeria's economy is Dele Farotimi, a lawyer, and in our Abuja studio is Auwal Rafsanjani, Executive Director at Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLA. It's great to have you both on the show. Let's go straight to it. What's your reaction to this recommendation, as it is, because it's not gotten approval yet, and we must insist on that? What's your reaction to this?
Well, there is a proverb that I've been heard used on past occasions, and is the one that says that the diarrhea of the monkey is not the business of the baboon. And there is nowhere where this comes home better than in the Nigerian space. A government says that it has removed fuel subsidy. The price of fuel increases by about 300%. Not a dime has been added to the salary of public sector workers. Nothing has been done to offer any sort of palliatives to the people. The Revenue Mobilization Committee, the gentleman that just spoke, is doing what he is statutorily empowered to do. But in the midst of all of these, we must look at the optics. The people are being told to offer more and more sacrifices, but those who purport to rule us continue to enjoy perks that we are not even allowed to know. The gentleman who just spoke now makes clear that what he is doing is what he's statutorily asked to do, fix allowances, and from what he said, only about ₦1 million or thereabout is meant to be going to the senator. But of course, we all know, because we don't know, and we are asked to fill in the gap because of the opaqueness of the finances of the Nigerian government, and particularly the legislators. Nobody knows exactly what is being taken home at the end of the day, but we do know that with alacrity, the system has responded and is about to increase the emoluments of these men by 114%. Question is, how long will the people continue to support a system that obviously does not feel the pain of their affliction, does not care in any way, shape, or form for their welfare, but increasingly ensures that those who are meant to sacrifice and rule and lead are the ones who are kept in comfort and in luxury? At the end of the day, it's up to the people, but I believe that this is not good. It's not good optics at all, not in this season. It's very bad.
Mr. Rafsanjani, what's your take on this? Does it make this fight and people suffering, you know, for a better Nigeria, does it make it worth the while, really? When you hear things like this?
Well, actually, what I expected them to do is to reverse it, you know, the other way around, is to actually cut down more on the salaries and allowances of the political office holders. This is because when you look at the economy, we cannot afford to be borrowing money to pay this flamboyant jumbo salary and allowances. We all know, and that is why you see the intensity of political violence in this country is in the increase, because people know that when they kill, when they, you know, prostrate electoral transparency, they get in there, or they even procure and buy the appointment, they will be getting this kind of lucrative money and privileges. Look, it's not only this money thing. There are other privileges that they have, like all of them. Before you know, they will all get plot of land in Abuja. It doesn't matter whether they have gotten before as a senator or as a House of Rep member or as you know, minister or as a DG, they will still get under this arrangement, because every 4 years you have new set of lucrative benefits that come to the political office holders. So it's not just the salary that they are getting. And you remember, many of them, they have enacted very ridiculous law that makes them to be perpetually collecting pension and gratuity. So you serve for 4 years or for maximum of 8 years as a governor, and you legislate a law to be collecting permanent pension and gratuity, including, you know, changing of cars, including medical trip to abroad, including taking care of your concubines. I mean, this is not absolutely operationable. This is absolutely not affordable, because the economy cannot afford that. Secondly, you are going to widen the inequality in the society. One has to say, pay us reasonable amount to survive as lecturers. You pick hole, you attack them, you blackmail them, you abuse them. One medical doctor say, please improve our condition of service. You tell them they should leave the country or they should leave the work. One security people who are supposed to be taken care of, when they demand for improve in service condition, you punish them and, in fact, take harsh decision on them. But politician, the only credential you have is to find yourself as either House of Rep member, or as a senator, or as a political appointee, or as a local government chairman, or as president or vice president or minister. You have an unfiltered access to public resources without reflecting the fact that a lot of people, a lot of states cannot even afford to meet the 30,000 minimum wage. And that is why some states have left, workers without salary for 6 months, for 1 year. The case of Benue is in mind. The governor Autumn left huge, debt for the state, without clearing the salaries of workers there. But the political appointees of his, state and Wike and all of them, almost 90, the entire 39, the entire governors in the whole countries, they have done the same thing. They have not only perpetuated legal framework to be getting this money, but they have also squandered and packed a lot of things that are meant for the public. So I think it is important, even though the revenue mobilization, they have the mandate to review. The review may not necessarily go up. It can also go down, because if the citizens are told to make sacrifice, they are told to bear the hardship created by the same political elite. I wonder why the elite, where is their own sacrifice? Where is the sacrifice of this political elite? Can they, if they are all well-to-do, they have something doing before they come to politics, why can't they make that contribution to Nigeria to say, look, I have donated my own salary, or I am going to make sure that I do X, Y, Z. But you don't see that. What you see is increase in terms of scrambling the national resources. They do it through many ways. They either grab the contract, which government does not follow due process because we have public procurement law and it's not to be respected. You have beneficial ownership, register. You do not know who owns X, Y, Z, but they will be giving themselves tax waiver and tax holiday on top of all this, and they will grab the land in Abuja and leaving the Nigerians and even the original inhabitants, rendering them landless without where to stay. I think the injustice perpetuated by political class is enough.
Yes, we'll talk about the injustice. We're going to break it down a bit further. And thank you very much. It's interesting that you give the perspective that the RMAFC, in reviewing the salaries of political office holders, do not have to review up. They can actually review down. But in the Nigerian context, we've hardly seen a review downward, except as with the previous immediate past president and vice president, who voluntarily chose to take a wage slash, a basic wage slash. But let me come back to the studio, and then this question will also be posed to you. Mr. Farotimi, in justification of the RMAFC's position, they've said that this decision wasn't made under this, or didn't start under this tenure. Now, if you recall, in February, they had a one-day retreat where they had zonal consultations with regards to the salary review. And also, in their defense, this review hasn't happened since 2007. 16 years ago. So in light of current realities, perhaps it is justified to also consider public office holders who are also Nigerians. And bear in mind that they don't have anything to do with the minimum wage. They don't determine that. This is their own remit, and they are working according to their own remit. What would you have to say about that? And then to Mr. Rafsanjani, I'd like to ask you, talking about minimum wage, Labour has asked at the negotiation table for a review upwards of the minimum wage to 200,000 naira. Of course, this has been met with a lot of skepticism, and analysis. However, since the public office holders, or according to RMAFC, they're recommending a 114% increase, do you think Labour would then be justified to push for their own increment, in line with this? Maybe 200,000 is even too low. Maybe we should start to look at a bit more reflective of our society. Let me come to you, Mr. Farotimi, first of all.
Well, I think the first thing we need to understand is this. What is the purpose of government? if the purpose of government is the welfare of the people, who you would ordinarily refer to as citizens, then none of these really makes sense. If the purpose of government is to serve the people, we shouldn't be wondering exactly how much our legislators, whether that be the House of Reps or any public officer for that matter, we should not be wondering exactly how much they are earning. The level of covering, the complete darkness as to how much is the take-home pay of a public official, especially an elected one, speaks to the kind of society we have built, what sort of politicians, quote and unquote, we have evolved, who do not even feel the affliction of the people. I would imagine that they themselves should feel scandalized in this movement. I am not speaking to the legal correctness of what has been done, but it should concern us that in this movement where people are being taken into multifaceted level of poverty, they can hardly feed, they have no access to health care, good roads have become non-existent, people can barely travel from one point to the other. The last thing we should be discussing is anything that suggests an upward review of any sort of reward for those who have brought us here. So yes, this government did not start this. Legal or illegal, I'm not going to talk to that, but this regime is not responsible for this. But the people in the last regime and the people in this regime, government is a continuum. Yes. The APC has ruined this country consistently for the last 8 years. This is the 9th of those years. So even though it might have blamed its twin brother, the PDP, for the preceding 16 years, it has to own the last 8 years. And no matter how you dice this, at the end of the day, when you look at where we are as a people 8 years ago and where we are today, is a world apart. Our world is practically falling apart, and these are the people responsible. No matter how much they want to dice this, they are responsible. For anyone to even now think that it's a good idea to be talking about an increment of any sort in the emolument of persons whose emoluments are already opaque enough is sickening to even comprehend. So we might want to look at it as an isolated issue, but we will be wrong. It should be looked at more as an issue that concerns the entirety of the society itself. What kind of society, what kind of people think it is all right to be talking about an upward review? These are people who should voluntarily on their own not only declare what it is that they are taking that we do not know, but even begin to talk about cutting the cost of governance drastically. So where we are today, that we are even discussing this like it's some sort of subject that should be discussed by rational beings, is suggestive of the level of putrefaction that has set into our society. It is not a subject we should be discussing at this time, in this situation. It shows the insensitivity of the ruling class. Yeah. That we even consider something as sickening as this. This is not the time. This is not even about partisan politics again. It's about the humanity of the person you call a Nigerian. How in the world do you go about the business of even talking, not even suggesting it? There is even been...
All right, okay, so you use the word insensitive. ASUP have also described that as insensitive. Mr. Rafsanjani, Labour have also said it's provocative. What's your take on this with regards to the ask of Labour following the fuel subsidy removal, that the minimum wage for Nigerian workers to be 200,000 naira in light of this recent development?
You know, the political class or the ruling class in Nigeria, they are not ashamed to continue to perpetuate suffering on the ordinary Nigerians. They are happy. They always, they are always happy because they have their way. They package themselves in a manner that they will perpetually continue to emasculate public taxpayers' money, rewarding their inaction and action in this country. And that is why many of them will roll down policies and programs that only looked very self-centered policies, without caring the ordinary person. the other, the other leaders in the last regime, you've seen how they, maltreated or they handle issues of labor, issues of ASU. In fact, they were mocking and even abusing, ASU for demanding an improved condition of service and education generally. But because they have packaged themselves, many of them, they have packaged their children abroad using public taxpayers' money. They have taken care of, even when they have malaria, they will carry business class or first class and go abroad with public taxpayers' money. So they didn't really care, and that is why the chaos, that is why the inequality is increasing. And it is important that the Bola Tinubu administration understand this sensitive issue, to, even though it's being proposed, to actually tell the revenue mobilization to say, look, at this material time, it will be difficult for us to approve this. So I am calling on the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in the interest on, peace, stability, and also fairness and justice. They should forget about this increase of these political appointee and elected official salaries. If the political class had been very serious about this country, they would have made conditions for us to have industries, manufacturing that will make Nigerians to be more productive, more useful, and the nation will get more income. And, with a lot of jobs coming from the private sector, you do not need to worry yourself much about this. But because they have connived to kill, the instrument that will enable us to have more vibrant factories and manufacturing, they have killed everything. And that is why you see a lot of Nigerians have no job. They have been pushed to do so many dirty jobs that they are not supposed to go. When you go abroad, many Nigerians who have masters, they have been reduced to doing, domestic work. Many, of course, other Nigerians, they also manage to find better job there. But out there, when you go, you see a lot of competent, qualified Nigerians that are supposed to be contributing to our nation, but they have been pushed out of frustration. They have been pushed out of this country to go and do job just for them to survive. I think it is important that elite in this country understand that the only way this democracy can be durable and survive is when they do the right thing, and when they do the fairness, and when they do the right policies and legal framework, and implemented them in a manner that can get Nigerians out of this misery of poverty, misery of insecurity, which they have also created. Because when they steal the resources that is meant for security and safety, including supporting or giving adequate resources for the personnel in the security sector, they are creating conditions for Nigerians to be hopeless and not even have confidence in their country. Therefore, I am calling on President Ahmed Bola Tinubu not to approve this proposal, because Nigeria cannot be a perpetual debt collector. Last regime of Buhari had, made useless of this country by every time going to go and borrow money, and not even in accordance with the fiscal responsibility law. So therefore, we cannot come back now again and start borrowing to pay people who are already overpaid. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you look at some of the governors in the National Assembly, they have already legislated permanent pension and gratuity for themselves. And many of them, the sovereign package they even collect is enough to pay workers for many years. I think we need to be fair and need to be just, and we should consider leadership as a trust. We cannot just use political appointment or political opportunity that the elite have to be only looking for yourself and leaving the millions of Nigerians in misery, poverty, hunger, and starvation. I think God will even ask them why this thing. Definitely, God will interrogate this kind of thing. If they think Nigerians should not, interrogate, I think many Nigerians believe in the hereafter. Many Nigerians believe in God. They should always put God and pity and mercy Nigerians who cannot afford ordinary medication in hospital. The services are not there. In other places where you have this kind of thing, you will see so many things functioning. Minimum wage in Nigeria cannot be paid by many states in this country. And now when you look at the reality, what will, for example, even 100,000 do you? You pay house rent from there, you pay hospital, you pay children's school fees, you pay, the food that you consume. You do a lot of things, you close yourself. All with this is the reason why even the corruption itself is being promoted as a result of imbalances in the incomes and productivity. Let the government ensure more productivity in the social sectors and services, and let people earn legitimate income that can take care of them, not to come and create opportunity for more political violence in this country and for people to be paying to get appointment, because they are paying to buy appointment.
Can you hear me? I was just telling you that your point was already well made. You were beginning to say the same thing over and over again. Now, quickly, let me start with you, Dele Farotimi. Two quick things for you. The first is, will it have made a difference if this proposal by the RMAFC is only for judicial officers? Because originally, when this whole debate started, it was meant only for judicial officers. In fact, it was a proposal by the NBA. But now the RMAFC, responding to it, has added public office holders to it. Will it have been, will your reaction have been different if it was just judicial officers, who, as we know, are victims of poor welfare, poor conditions of service and all of that? And then, of course, you are a Labour Party man. To take the thing beyond the RMAFC, do you still have hope? With the momentum that Tinubu has generated, that anything magical will happen to displace him or to change anything in any way. I mean, you are a student of real politics. And then Rafsanjani, let me come back to you. I mean, you are a civil society person. Just a general comment on how the Tinubu administration has been carrying on in terms of how we've seen one policy after another, suspension of the CBN governor, suspension of the EFCC, appointments, and now we are told that we are looking for foreign direct investments in France that will come almost immediately because of policies that are on the ground. Let's start with Dele Farotimi.
I am all for anything that guarantees the independence of the judiciary. I've had a lot to say about the judiciary. It's not the time to repeat any of that. But truth is that increasing the remuneration of any public officer, particularly those like the judicial officers who ordinarily shouldn't even be seen in public spaces, talk less of have additional places where they could augment their income. If we are saying they shouldn't be corrupt, then we must, of course, be willing to pay them living wages. I would have zero problem with paying judicial officers what I believe to be living wages. So if their remuneration were to have been increased in isolation to that of people whose actual remuneration are unknown to Nigerians, then I wouldn't have anything to say against that. I would only have asked that by the same token that judicial officers would have had their salaries and emoluments increased, people in the hospitals, people in schools, public officers, more or less civil servants, those who are not political office holders should equally enjoy the same benefit. When you now speak to the matter in court in passing, let me say this. The judiciary is meant to be the last hope of the common man. We are all here, and we were here in Nigeria on the 25th of February. The judiciary will be given adequate evidence of what transpired on that day. They also live in this society. It is up to them to decide how they wish to be remembered. I have already said, I have zero trust or hope in the Nigerian judiciary. I'm on record as having said that multiple times. But it is not for the Labour Party or any other party before the judiciary to hope that the judiciary will do the right thing. It is for them to put an abundance of evidence before the judiciary and before the world. And it is then for the judiciary to decide whether it is indeed the last hope of the common man or not. Now, to speak to the momentum being gathered by the Tinubu administration, quote and unquote, let me first of all remind us that unilaterally, without thought and without having made any preparation before or after, removing the subsidy, quote and unquote, on petrol is not momentum. Sectional appointments that tend to pander to ethnic basis and loyalty, those are not momentum. The truth has a way of catching up with all of us. That somebody has gone off to Spain to go and bring investors from the moon, those are not momentums. Eventually, when the tire hits the road and people begin to understand just exactly how divorced from reality those who purport to rule Nigeria are, those who are already looking at situations and think that the only thing to be thinking about in this moment are increases in political office holders' salary, eventually, the people, whether they were APC members, PDP members, Labour Party members, when they find that when they get to the filling station, nobody demands their party affiliation. When they get to the market, nobody is asking whether Yachinedu is paying more or less than the other. The commonalities of their afflictions will become obvious to them. And they should by then begin to understand that this is not about ethnicity. It's not about political affiliation even. It is about the common good and the common interest. Those who care about common good focuses on what is best for all, not on what is good for a section. Any young Nigerian below the age of 30 that you recruit in a job in Nigeria today is already processing some visa or the other out of Nigeria. They're running away. So what hope is being renewed? Momentum will soon find momentum, and we'll know whether it's mentolatum or aboniki.
Okay, well, you know, your point about judiciary not being the last hope of the common man. Only yesterday at a forum, Femi Falana SAN, in fact, said the judiciary is now the last hope of the Nigerian bourgeoisie.
Oh, well.
You seem to agree with him. Rafsanjani, well, let's come back to you. Your quick take on how the Tinubu administration has been faring. Is it gaining momentum or not?
No, to be honest to you, what Tinubu has done is what other presidents will always do. First, what they perceive as their enemy, they will get rid of them. Secondly, they will bring in those who they believe they can work with. So that's what we have seen so far. But in terms of concrete policy that can, attract foreign investors, in terms of concrete policies that can begin to deal with issues that, affect governance, the government has not yet rolled down those things. And, you can't even roll down some of these policies without public consultation or without at least public input. So I believe it is still too early to begin to assess the government because we haven't seen any policy, put in place dealing with issues of economy drastically, issues, that will deal with the issue of insecurity, issues that will deal with issues of the corruption, of course, issues that will deal with, addressing justice system reform. All these are yet to be put in place. So hopefully, Tinubu is working on them, and we wait to see when those things are put in place to see whether they are going to meet with the aspiration of Nigerians and also whether they will also meet with the expectation of the international community. But for now, what the Tinubu administration has done is simply to make sure that EFCC chair who was investigating some of the President Tinubu friends been asked to stay away. Okay. And then, of course, the CBN, governor who was seen right from the beginning as a stumbling block to Tinubu realization of his presidential, aspiration for, creating confusion in the, in the monetary policy. Well, he also gets rid of him. Of course, the appointment of the service chief is natural. They do that.
Thank you very much for your time this morning. Unfortunately, we are completely out of time, but we're really grateful for your insight on the conversation on the table this morning. And of course, Mr. Dele Farotimi as well. Thank you.